talk about this approach of trying to find our common humanity. And I think that, of course, yes, that's of course what we should be doing. And that's definitely what I'm trying to do as well. But yeah, what would it mean actually to foreground emotional questions or the emotions of a relationship or a situation explicitly? And I mean, I guess to get what your first question about hearing someone speak, to say, what is this really about? What is this about? I feel like the best cognate, fortunately, unfortunately, is therapy. You know, I think the kind of, I mean, I've been in multiple kinds of therapy in my life. I find it tremendously useful, inspirational, but it really is about, you know, okay, cut the bullshit, right? Like, what's behind what you're saying? What else is going on? One of the most powerful therapeutic experiences I've ever had is in group therapy. And I feel like a lot of what I'm doing in town is trying to find a way to, you know, stage a kind of collective group therapeutic process. Not in any kind of like, you know, tell me about your feelings, talk about your feelings, but actually trying to think like formalistically. Group therapy is very strange. You're with a group of people that you know nothing about in terms of their lives in the real world, and you're not supposed to meet them in the real world. But you know, not everything, but like really weird, strange, central things about them that are allowed to enter the room, that don't come out anywhere else. And so I was just thinking like, gosh, what would it mean to sort of create encounters in space that allow something to come out between people that won't come out even in casual conversation? And maybe it's just like something very brief that's said or remarked upon, but that like hits you at a very core emotional level. And oh, okay, I wasn't thinking that, or I didn't understand that, or makes me think about something in a different way. Can we actually like use a space in a way that creates these kinds of therapeutic, theatrical, emotional encounters? Erin?
Yeah, that makes me think a lot. And I think in addition to creating the space, what does it look like to create safety within that space and trust within that space that encourages vulnerability?
Yeah.
Because I agree, like, I see tremendous benefit to having therapeutic spaces and also getting people to be present and vulnerable in those spaces is challenging.
Yeah. Becoming vulnerable yourself and getting others vulnerable is extremely challenging. I think it's something that the theater, again, has tried to do over time, right? I mean, like, look at the Greeks, you know, and like they're trying to say, let's present people in a way that you begin to look at yourself as a much more vulnerable person. But there are ways, I think, through art, more broadly speaking. So tomorrow at the performance, I think the use of music. So what's going to happen tomorrow, if you can't come, please come if you can, is that whole section in the middle of what I was talking about in terms of what Sewell was talking about every day. These people came to me, or they didn't come to me, or they tried to kick us out, or they this guy. We're going to recreate through the movement of bodies and music and sounds. And I don't want to give it all away, but I think that hearing music actually like kind of allows you to sort of open up a little bit, settle down, kind of expand your senses, take things in that you wouldn't hear if someone just like explained something intellectually, you know? I mean, that's why songs hold such emotional power, is they're a space in which to feel around questions of the unknown and these foundational questions of our lives. So I do think like music is one way to actually create a space of vulnerability as a collective, maybe not making any one individual more vulnerable than not, you know? But people have other ideas on how to do that. I mean, vulnerability is like absolutely the key. Yeah.
Stephen, everyone. Yeah, as you're talking about that, thanks for the lecture, by the way, it's beautiful. What, in thinking about therapy, the thing that usually distinguishes therapy, whether group therapy or personal therapy, is ultimately the vulnerability is shared by that person about their experience, right? And so what you're asking us to do, which I find very interesting, is to tie this whole thing to history and ask them to do the same thing in a collective way that people are more comfortable with or more probably natural doing on an individual level. And so I just find that really interesting. And I don't have any words of wisdom on how to go about that, but it's a much broader thing. And for me, that's kind of like a two-step process rather than a one-step process. I can tell you all about my traumas and my sadness and all that stuff. But to tie this to a community and with a view of history, for me, I was a history teacher for a long time, so it's fascinating to me that you're doing this. And then just looking for mechanisms to get people to either use that historical experience as a springboard for their own emotionality and their own vulnerability, or to kind of, as what I think you're trying to do here, is to help us, instead of looking at history as these cardboard cutouts who are marching through time, as these living, feeling, breathing human beings who have the same emotions that we have, and to try to bring that into this present moment, right now. And it's just a really interesting task. So.
Yeah, thanks. And that is the task. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that the word history is used so sloppily. So if you actually listen to people use the word history, they basically use it to mean about 500 things. And most of the time, you can actually remove the word history and they could just use other words and everything would be fine, right? So usually it's they're just saying the past. You just mean something that happened before you, right? Or someone will say it's historic. Oh, you mean it's important. So these are already two very different things. Why did this one word, right, come to hold all this weight? A historic question in and of itself. And so I think part of my project, which is really hard, is to get people to think about history differently as more of as a process rather than a subject, because the word history means inquiry. So ancient Greece again, but all these guys running around saying, no, wait, listen to me. I'm going to explain to you what happened, and follow me, and take my guidance. And other people are like, why should we trust you? Why don't we go ask people what happened? Why don't we go ask the people you're talking about, right? That was to inquire, right? So history is an interruption of any one claim or story, and it's to say, okay, but there's also this, and that person said this. It creates vulnerability in the community, and I wish that we were able to reclaim that original sort of ethical impulse of history as a method of stopping any one person from telling us how something happened and what it means. That it's actually always is the challenge to any one claim. And that's scary for people. So no wonder it's become a stand-in, the word history, for the past, the claim, the thing, right? It's historical, capital H. And yeah, what a co-option over time of a process that could actually be central to how we create community and increasing our awareness of all the things that are around us that we forgot about or we didn't know, because we're not asking, we're not inquiring. And so anyways, I guess it's a slightly idealistic way of thinking about the project, but it's to say, well, in history itself is the creation of vulnerability, but, I mean, yeah, I mean, I was in the academy for years, that's a battle with that, right? And then you have history in schools, right? It's like, no, we gotta teach it this way, this is what it is. Yeah, Sarah?
I think there's like another aspect here of like, how do you create this kind of like sacred ritual space? Like when we talk about other times that people come together with vulnerability, it is under either religious or spiritual authority or under some sort of medical authority. I can't think of like a ton of like secular sacred spaces, right? Or like that create this kind of container for vulnerability and like reflection. And I wonder like what ingredients need to come from that to make something feel safe, and also for people to, because I think what you're hoping for is for people to bring a certain kind of attitude and respect and like solemnity, like not insofar as like it has to be sad, but like a seriousness.
That's really interesting, because you're basically asking about the emotionality of the process itself, right? And I've been thinking about the word serious recently too, because there's so many unserious people in the world who claim to be serious. So it's like people interested in history, I'm like, well, if you are actually interested, like, let's have a discussion about this, or have a conversation about that, or and this is a general statement, and it's not about any one particular religion or person, but like, I do think religion can easily become a place of unseriousness. In other words, like, if you really actually read like scripture, that's been brought together in what we call the Bible, I mean, if you read it emotionally and if you read it in a really rigorous way, it's people like constantly like pushing against boundaries and like trying to figure out what they don't know and why they don't know it, and feeling very uncomfortable. But so much religion as we know it is about, no, this is the answer, and starting with the answer instead of leading with the question. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. You're not actually serious about the subject at hand. So it's like, what do we do? What do I do with that? I think like that's a huge struggle with this organization. It's like, I'm trying to treat everything seriously as a mode of inquiry. Like the town. I'm like, okay, it's clearly more than building a 5-masted schooner. It's so much more. That's so important to our lives today here. Let's take it serious. Let's take that inquiry seriously. And I'm like, what emotionally is going on then, right? But I think then there is so much room for like joy and play and like make believe in this process too, which is where the theater comes in as well. It's like, to enter the space of vulnerability, you need to kind of surrender, you need to be playful, you need to be able to joke, you need to be able to laugh at yourself, you need to be able to laugh at others in a way that we're all gonna not take as like, a serious crime against me, that like, it's okay, make fun of me, it's okay. Like you that needs to come out, because people don't have a way of expressing their anxiety, But nowadays it's like, no, can't say that, don't interject, can't say blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oof, we're going nowhere with that. We're going nowhere, yeah.
Well, I think part of the problem is, I think people feel more secure with absolutism.
Yeah.
And so they just know, this is the way it is, I don't have to think about it anymore. And it's lazy.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to think about it anymore. I know it's this way, and that's the only way it is, and we're done. And I think that's kind of what we run into with religion or with history or with lots of things.
Yeah, it's sad. That's sad. I feel sadness. But again, part of it's like, okay, so what emotionally is going on for a person who needs to say, no, this is it. Clearly, they need to say that for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, that's I'm not going to get anywhere with asking someone that direct question, of course, right? But I want that question to be like, wait, well, what's behind that need for certainty? And can you kind of like, I hate this word, reverse engineer, like what's driving someone to certainty to kind of create the environment for inquiry. Not as a like, you need to think more, like that's not gonna get you anywhere, right? But slowly, how do you actually create spaces that begin to, like in a therapeutic setting, slowly kind of open people up, like very casually, like very slowly, and which is also hard and frustrating in and of itself.
We have to make it so they still feel secure.
Yes, and I think it has to happen also in small doses, which is difficult for me. I was at the select board meeting, this past meeting, and I actually went to make an announcement, and there were these people in there, I was like, who are these people? I've never seen people in my life. And one woman was clearly like, she was an addict, or she was tripping a little bit, she was very antsy and stuff, and it's not a judgment, she actually then read a statement about how she was trying to recover. But before all that came out, the reason that these people were there is because the town has a list of properties that they now own because taxes hadn't been paid on them. And there was one property that they were like, hadn't paid for like 3 years, and the town basically said, you know what, we don't want to be involved with this. Not only do we own the property, we're gonna sell it, we're gonna put it on the market. And it was the meeting that they were announcing that, where the people who live in that house showed up. And it turns out that house is a house that is known as one of the major centers of drug dealing in Waldorf. So, in the room, I didn't know anything that was going on, right, until I find out after what was going on. But I was like, okay, emotionally, like something is like off in here. Like, who are these people? And one guy spoke up and yelled at another guy by saying something like, you shot at my car. I can't believe you shot at me in my car. And this other guy was talking about, we're gonna get the money. And this woman was reading this note about like, I can't help it. I'm trying to recover. I can't help it. And I was like, whoa. And meanwhile, the town, of course, is like trying to get through the meeting. And so Julie, the town manager, is like, basically, it's her job to be like shutting it down, right? Like, no, this is not the time for this. This is not the place for this, right? And of course, my mind is like, because this is exactly the place for this, right? Because what is going on in all these people's lives? And so my first response was like, I was like imagining a play where like this, like the spirit of each person, like the complications of their lives, like actually were allowed into the room, and the conversation was around all of that. And it took place not in like everyday life, but in this, this space that I've been calling like the feelscape of time. It's like, it's kind of a weird sort of dramatic space where spirits are, but also the spirits of ourselves that we don't let enter the room or can't, because the world is not structured that way. The world is structured to get business done, to pay, things on time. But I'm like, when do we make sense of this as a community, And yeah, it's not like those people are going to show up to an event, right? But I was like,
Well, and like, who are those meetings for?
Yeah.
Like the select board meeting, like in my brief foray into Waldeboro board membership, I didn't know if anyone understood what was going on. Like,
well, right. I mean, they're business meetings that legally they have to do X, Y, and Z in order to function as a town, in order to gain the funding that they need, and all that, But I mean, my point, I think, what yours is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that, but they're also discussing some of the most contentious issues of contemporary life, and there's no other space where the feelings and questions that drive those issues can come out anywhere in town. So they're going to come out in a very conflictual way that's not allowed to be explored in the very place where they can only, where they're addressed at all.
It's like illegible. I mean, like everything that happens in those meetings is subtext. Like,
Yeah.
And
Right, so I was like, how do you bring the subtext to, that's what I want to do. and the emotional historical subtext over time. Yeah.
What happened with the land?
The Moravian land?
No, sorry. I just want to know the results from the board meeting.
They put the house up for sale, and so the people who are living there will have to buy it back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Well, I'd just like to kudos to you for you're mixing metaphors, which I
In a
love.
good way?
In a very good way. I mean, I stopped and did this. It came to this curiosity.
Yeah.
I walked in, and from that time, I've been looking at these.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the pros and the cons, people who are so-called progressives
Yeah.
versus those who are
Conservative.
trying to keep life as it is. And my bank account to way over the edge, but yeah, it's really great, and I like how you made the physics. I saw a picture of the town underwater. I didn't know if that's what you had in mind.
Oh, that's
They
interesting.
really-
yeah. I mean, a lot of, this is about,
Right.
well, that's about like, at some point our boundaries will be overpowered by nature's boundaries, and I think we're dealing with that all the time, but we don't really talk about it, and that's also informing. I mean, I was just saying, I heard someone today, I was like, how much work it is just to keep the grass mowed? Like, that's why I was like trying to bring in this idea of just like clearing land and then being told, oh, I'm sorry, it's not your land, you have to pay for that again. Like, are you
Yeah, right.
kidding me? Yeah.
That was my question at the beginning. Who's the authority?
Me too.
That told them that they got to do this.
Well, it was disputed because authority was not clear, right? So this is a time where Massachusetts Bay Colony still had jurisdiction over where we live now. But the question of authority was also the question because why the west side of the river was thought to be part of one patent but actually wasn't was a question of who initially was in charge 200 years before that, who wrote the patents out, and how were they transferred, and who and to whom and why. So there were questions that would never be able to be figured out, and so I think there were deals that were made, and that was like, all right, fine, that's going to be part of another patent, and those people are going to have to repay, and that's that. Yeah. Which is kind of how the town deals with stuff too, I mean, at some point you just have to be like, what else is there to do, Well, there's more to do, but like, it's too much.
On these, you photographs.
No, this is part of another series that is part of what I'm hosting, but it's taken by another photographer for a series about substance use disorder. Any other questions or comments quickly? Yeah.
Were there other Moravian communities in Maine that were more successful?
No, as far as I know, not. I believe this one was known as the only potential community in the northern colonies. Sewell, in his journal and his diary, does mention preaching at some other places, maybe in New Hampshire or Connecticut. But the comment he makes about some of those places, maybe one of them was elsewhere in Maine, was that there were people searching for a leader, but none of us could stay for long, and so the revival spirit simmered out, but there's still a need. So I think that was probably the truth with many communities, that it was a function of not having enough ministers to be there. And also they also wanted to, as we all do, I guess, live among people that felt and thought like them, which is why they all, in North Carolina and then in Pennsylvania, there were these large Moravian communities, and there's still settlements are still fully there.
It's interesting because Waldoboro had kind of a radical beginning, right? And then when the English came in, it became a famously conservative town for like 150 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting just to see.
I mean, again, it gets complicated emotionally because I think the English elites who are in charge here were also asserting themselves and asserting a federalist politics that was going out of fashion in the 19th century, and so they thought they could kind of like, they were impotent in the larger picture, but asserted their potency in Waldoboro.
Right.
So talk about vulnerability, right? It's like these guys were like, no, like the order of the United States is going to be this way. Oh my God, it was crumbling all around them in the country. So we're going to hold on. So I see that as like tremendous like vulnerability, you know. I mean, as I would portray it if I were to dramatize it, right? But also, I think that this like idea of conservatism, you know, it's not just about like, you know, no progress. That, as I was talking earlier, that it is emotionally also about just, you know, resisting others telling you what to do, think, and feel. And I feel like all of us can kind of identify with that, which is why I would identify a very conservative core to myself, and I won't let a political ideology co-opt that term as something that is what they say it is. And I would say that the same about like liberal people, co-opted all sorts of terms. You know, I just feel like if we look at each word sort of emotionally of what people are trying to get at, then there's a lot more commonality, obviously, but also an ability to change the language. Thank you all for coming and hearing it. And I really appreciate you coming out because I know it's a busy time and it's hot and everything, but it's just very important to do this and have a record, as I was saying. So
Some great gifts to the.
So thank you, and if you can make tomorrow's performance at 11 a.m., that would be great too.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.